We're going to talk this morning. Do be with me on this. Turn these things back on your own experiences, on your own life, on the things that have happened to you since you got out of bed this morning and came to this meeting. Apply them to immediate things if you can't apply them to things of 10 or 20 years ago. And eventually you will want to apply them. That is, you will want to remember something that happened to you a long time ago and see it correctly. Then you're free of it. The reason we're not free is because we do not see the past correctly. We see it with an ego self. We see it with an emotion. We see it with a condemnation. What we're going to do this morning is talk about mistakes that we might be making that we're unaware of. If you want to put it another way, things that we could do for ourselves that we're not doing because we're unaware of them. Maybe we don't know about them. No one's ever told us about them. And the one we're going to start with is a blanket statement, which is this. We do not realize that we do not have to be captured by any negative experience or any negative thought or any negative emotion. Do you understand so far? Please. It sounds so simple, but do you understand it so far? That we do not have to be captured, that is taken over and punished by anything negative that comes to us, whether it comes within our own minds from memory, and it will always come from memory. You cannot be punished by now in any way at all. Or by someone on the exterior who perhaps says something or does something. And you in turn, or I in turn, respond to it, react to it. And because we react on the level, now listen, this may be new to some of you, so you have to listen. Because we react, because we respond to these experiences from the outside or to our own thought, we respond to it with thought. Nothing good, to simplify it, can happen. Because, we've explained before, thought is on the level of this table. It is flat, and it can only go from this corner to that corner. This is why most human beings never escape their difficulties, why they live in worry, why they live in unconscious fears, why they never get out of the trap. We are here to get out of it. Now understand, you cannot get out of it by thinking. If you saw this one thing alone here today, you would go out here new people, new men and new women. But you don't see this yet. I know you don't, and we'll come to that eventually. You don't see the mistake you're making is thinking that thought can rescue you. You don't see the significance of this, do you? Because you have not explored thought long enough to see how it operates. For example, it repeats itself endlessly. Thought is mechanical. It cannot do a thing but say what it said 5 minutes ago or 50 years ago. This is why problems cannot be solved in any way except in these, you want to call them higher truths, that we're going into. This is the only way out. There's no other way. And those who say there's another way never find it. And they die never knowing what they could have had. We don't want that for ourselves. So thought is purely repetitious. If it cannot rise above itself, if it can't rescue us, then there has to be something else, if rescue is possible, which indeed it is. It makes no difference what has happened to you or me, what shameful things we have done, what terrible self-condemnation we have, or what happened to us in our human relations with our ex-wife, ex-husband, ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend. No matter what we have done, we can be free of it right now. All right. What is this other... Words are so confining. What is this other state? Other state that can free us from thought, and our problem is thought. What is it? What's it all about? What are we going to do? We have to start by seeing what thought itself has done to us, especially seeing that it has not rescued us. This is very simple. You throw everything back on yourself that we have talked about so far and ask yourself, has thinking about this problem that boss down there who's very unkind, or that husband or wife who gives you such a problem, or that neighbor, you've never solved the problem, have you? Just because the neighbor moved away and that problem went away, that was purely accidental. You didn't change a bit. Now the next neighbor that moves in, you're in the same problem maybe. See, we think a problem is solved because the physical presence of it has gone away in one way or another. If I get rid of this man or this wife, my problem will be solved. They're never solved in any way at all. Because the problem, listen, the problem is in the thought itself. When we begin to see that there is nothing we can do with thought, which is a lot of work, hard work. We're working hard. You have to work hard. When you see this first elementary step, then you can see a second elementary step. There's many more. Why do we insist upon thinking our way out of a problem? First, because we don't know that it's ineffective. It can do nothing for us. Because by accident we get rid of this old problem, whether a human being or situation, and we accidentally get another, and we feel what we call good. Deep inside, we know we haven't changed a thing. All right. If we can see that thinking about it can do absolutely nothing, now we can see the next thing. And this is very important, and we've discussed it before. When I see that what I call me, myself, Tom Smith, Mary Jones, consists, this identity that I've given myself, consists of acquired thought, of labels, of words. When I see this, it is both an open door and a terrifying leap into the dark. Some of you are nodding. You understand this, don't you? When I see that I have to drop thought as a solution to my problems, far from simplifying it, it is more difficult, but it is right difficulty. Because instead of running away from the problem, I have faced it boldly. I've said I have to leap right through that dark door. It's an open door now, but I have to leap into it. But I don't know what will happen to me if I do. All right. Now, having seen a little bit that what I call me, what I call Tom Smith or Mary Jones, is made up of labels, thoughts, ideas, which can be very flattering, and usually are. I am a person who just loves my children so much. Oh, yes, you do. I love my wonderful husband. Isn't it strange? Women always have wonderful husbands in public. And they're not wonderful at all, are they? See you all smile when it gets a little close. Or wife, same thing. There's no difference. Men and women are all alike. No one is better or worse than anyone else. When I see that I have put labels on myself, you know why? See this. I call myself who I am in order to keep up the very torturing pretense that has kept me in hell all my life. One step further. I have taken a step into this dark door of seeing that this is all a phony self, a fictitious self. I've tracked it way back from thought. Thought can do nothing. I see how it forms a me. Now it becomes real frightening. And I'm going to fight you every step if you try to tell me this. In fact, I won't even listen to you. The second you tell me about this, I'm scared, and off I go, never to come back again. It's too terrifying. You stick with it. You come back here, for your sake, not mine. It's up to you whether we even have these groups or not. You come back here and be frightened, and you be scared, and you know, you're even permitted to be very hostile if you want. We won't say anything. I will know it because I'm watching your faces, and I'm watching the questions you ask. You can be as hostile as you want if you will look at it and not condemn yourself for it, because you are not condemned by anyone else here. I hope you're not, if the rest of you are awake. You're not being condemned for it. We're understanding it. When I see that all myself is a phony self, and see that this is the basic cause of my misery, I can begin go into another dark door, which consists of this. And this is a very classic teaching, if you want to refer to many things you've probably read in books. I can begin to die daily. I can begin to let go. I can begin to abandon, as frightening as it is. And I'm telling you this over and over so that when it happens, you will say, well, the man said it'd be frightening, so that's a little bit of help. See, I'm going to let go of who I have called myself, of the labels. Having seen that I'm made up of words and labels which have given me nothing but heartache and sorrow and bitterness and hostility and anger and fear of death. Having seen that I have been living with a phony, fictitious self that smiles when it doesn't want to smile, that has these intense hostilities toward everyone who questions my precious values and all that, then I can begin to give up one little one small one at a time. And I do this in daily experience. Maybe after this meeting, for example, when you're sitting around here saying goodbye, you might catch something in yourself that you could observe first, and then simply, it's so simple, you simply drop a negative reaction because you know that it is ruining you, and that is all there is to it. All there is to it. You work for months, and you work for years, and you think you've got it made. You come up and congratulate me on what a wonderful talk I gave, and then you go out and you go right back to your same life. It hasn't penetrated one bit. Which brings us to another mistake, which you may be making, and we're all working on this together. You may not realize that all these things that we're discussing may not be a part of your everyday life. That you do not do what you know. For the last 10 or 15 minutes, you have been acquiring gold of information, something of great value to you. Now, will you take these out and do just what I said and work on them every day? Do you know my main difficulty here? Shall I tell you what it is? Reaching you just below the point where you will resist what I'm telling you. Because I know it. I'm watching you. Now, I'm not only here, but afterwards, when you're watching yourself. It is very difficult to tell many people these things at all, and you can't. There are probably 50,000 people at a football game right now, or whatever the sport is this time of year, basketball. And there are very few of us here because most people don't want it at all. The same thing applies with us here. It is very difficult for me to tell you these things because I know exactly where most of you will resist. And when you resist, because you're afraid to let go, to die to this self, which has been exposed a little bit here, I know you close. And many people go away. Shall I tell you something, a little secret? Many people go away from here very critical. And you know why, don't you? Because this is rough stuff. It is not easy. If you want easy stuff, go to church. You'll be told what you want to hear. And you'll have a lot of fun, and you'll meet lots of new friends. And you'll give them a talk about a travelogue in Palestine, and they'll make some vague connection with religion to make you think it's religious. And you'll go home empty and afraid again. Try to live, I'll put it very simply, try to live what you have heard. This is your responsibility. We're only here for an hour and a half. You have to take these with you. May I ask, have any of you been working during the last time we have been here, just a raise of hand if you want, on these things on yourself? Have you been doing some of these things? I'll tell you something. If you glimpse this, if you see it, I don't see how on earth you can go out of here without saying, thank heaven I've found it. And nothing matters but to apply it, to work at it. I am sick and tired of being scared and lying about it and saying that I know what I'm talking about and pretending to others that I'm brave. We've said many times you have to get very tired before you can find the right way, because vanity stands in the way if we're not sufficiently tired. Then we can begin to use our daily experiences. I've told you, the best friends you have are upsetting experiences, people who make it rough on you. Be very grateful to unkind people, to stupid people. Look, there are stupid people, let's admit it. And we, of course, at the same time we see it in them, we look back on ourselves. Do use it every day. The more shock you have, the better you have. Up in our little 3-person Boulder City group, we say that we emphasize to ourselves that unless we're making it very rough on each other, we're not working at all. If we're simply going to come together and talk nicely and flatter each other subtly, we're not doing a thing for ourselves. And so we give each other all the time little minor shocks, as much as we can bear at a time. You remember in the New Testament something was said about, there are many things I could give you, but ye cannot as yet bear them. We're here to be destroyed so that we might live for the first time. Let's also see, we may be making a mistake regarding the law of, shall we call it, cause and effect. If I am in trouble in any way at all, whether it's a minor disappointment or a very sharp shock, I and I alone am the pure cause of it, no one else. I will not see this, refer back to what was said at the beginning, please. I will not see this until I first see that thought always divides itself into 2 parts. We've covered this, haven't we? If I have a disappointment or a shock, an unwanted experience, the first and only reaction of a person who does not understand these things, which is most human beings, is to explode against you, the government, the wife, the husband, the boss. The problem is always outside. For one thing, if I blame you, that enables me to retain my self-images of being a very nice person who never hurts anyone else. And therefore I'm trapped by not seeing that I was the cause of it by my own reaction. If I could first see that I stand all alone on, don't you dare blame anyone for anything, even if he or she was rude or thoughtless or cruel. We're not saying that. They may be very thoughtless out there, and they are. It's a mad world. It is indeed. If you join it, and if you blame it, you are part of it. To see insanity does not mean to see it on the level of conditioned, acquired thought. If I call you mad, and I am negative about it, I am equally mad. Because it is easier again to blame you for being mad and protect my images of being sane, which I am not, than to face the whole thing of my own madness. One of the dark doors we go through is seeing, I wish I could use stronger language, but I can't. All right, I'll say it, to see how insane we are. That's a very strong word. A lot of people can't take that, but we will take it here. To see that we're actually psychologically insane. We are. To see it is to begin to be above it. All insanity, if you want to use that term, and I did, exists and continues because of a refusal to face the fact that we are that way, that we are living on the level of conditioned thought. As far as this gentleman is concerned, and this lady, and this lady, and this lady, and this gentleman, and this lady, as far as everyone in this room is concerned, listen very carefully now in the next few minutes. There is only one world. I have one world. This is what it consists of. It consists of what I call me. There are not 2 worlds at all. There's not my world and this lady's world, or this gentleman's world, nor is his world divided from mine. When you see that there's only one world, this will cut off entirely all attempts to blame anyone for anything that has happened to you. Because you see, it's not divided at all. I am the cause of my own effects. I will repeat. I am the cause of my own effects. To see this is the beginning of liberty. But it takes courage, because now I can't blame you. Not blame, that's not right. If I see there's something wrong with me, what attitude should I have? Let's say that I am emotionally hypocritical. I say one thing to you, and I feel another. Because I want you to like me, I tell you that I like you, and I don't like you at all, I'm using you. But if I have you around, I think it will lower my loneliness, which it won't. I'll just go from one friend to another, one husband or wife to another. If I see that I am the cause of my own loneliness, I can then also see that I was an emotional hypocrite. I was self-divided from myself. What attitude should I have when I see that I do tell these lies with words? I may lie with my facial expression, with a gesture. I may, look, I have a valuable picture, and you knock it over and injure it a little bit, and I feel real bad about it, but I don't want you to hate me, because I know you already feel bad about breaking it over. And I say, oh, that's all right, that's all right, that's all right. See, that's all wrong. You're lying. That does not mean that you wish it hadn't happened. You handle it consciously, which is an entirely different reaction. But you never make a problem out of it. Don't you see that you don't have to divide yourself by living in thought and making a problem out of anything? In the first place, you're identified with that vase. You paid $80 for it, $180 for it, and you love to tell people that it's a Ming Dynasty vase. Which means you are getting a sense of self out of it. Eventually, you may still want the vase, but you won't divide yourself because of it. Do you understand, then, up to this point, that you need not divide yourself from a problem, and indeed, you are never, ever apart from a problem, because, now listen, I am my problem, and there is no other. If I were to stop right there, what else would happen? What other attitudes would I have to have? Never again would I ever point an accusing finger at anybody else for anything. I would understand instead, for example, I am in trouble with a certain human relation in my life. You name it if you want. Because 10 years ago, or 20, 30 years ago, or half hour ago, because I did not understand these things I was talking about, when I met you, whenever it was, I was a very confused human being. What was I? I was lonely. I was afraid. I wanted someone to talk to. I wanted someone to make a good impression upon, so this good impression would in turn make me feel good. I had all these things wrong with me, but I didn't know it. I really didn't know that there was something seriously wrong with me. First place, no one ever told me this, because my parents were just as afraid as I am, right? The people who gave me sermons and lectures and psychological counsel, I could see by the way they reached for the cigarette or whatever, or how their eyes wandered when I was talking to them, that they were really bored, that they had many problems while they were trying to solve mine. And I went through all these preliminary stages. But now I am involved with this person, and I see what caused it. You can never betray me at all. I can only betray myself because of my lack of self-information. Information about my own lost condition. All right? Now I will give you some very good news. This is all good news, you understand. There's no such thing as bad news here. It's only bad news if you're being lied to. You're being told the truth here. See? We've covered it. We'll go over it again. Thought, thinking, ordinary thinking, what you call ordinary thinking, which is conditioned, which is distorted, which is illusory, lives in time. It lives in 30 years ago, and 5 minutes ago, and indeed 2 seconds ago. Thought lives in time. Memory lives in time. As long as I'm getting a sense of identity, a sense of self, of who I am, by thought, by memory, I will then have to suffer. I will have to suffer from what happened to me 5 seconds or 50 years ago. Are you following this? A little bit? As long as I am thinking about it, as long as I'm thinking about how I can solve this problem with this person I met, whenever it was, I'll never solve it. I may get rid of that person, and I'll meet another on the same level because I am still on the same level. A few minutes or a few days later, I'll be right back where I started. This is the pattern of most people. You know what I'm talking about. You've lived this way. The world lives this way. We're here to shatter the pattern. How do we do it? Did any of you do these projects that were given to you about interrupting thought? May I see your hands? I'll repeat it a little bit. During the time you have been here up until now, you have been thinking. You have been thinking rightly a large part of the time, because you cannot help, if there's one thing right with you, you cannot help but respond rightly to what you've heard. See how the truth is one thing? It's not mine, it's not yours. Everybody here had certain responses that were true and right, and that excited you, and that's right excitement. So I see that I can't think my way out of it at all. Then I can see that I can't do anything but give up mechanical, repetitious thought. Oh, you have to work hard. Thought does not want to give itself up. Because when you give up thought, you give up you. See how terrifying this is? I'll put that terrifying in quotes so you understand it is not terrifying. It is terrifying to be who you are, is it not? You tell me. I don't have to tell you. It is very frightening, very scary, very lonely to be who you are, who I am. See it every day. This is now, you do this. I said you can hear these things. You can know them without doing them. You have to actually put yourself into action. When one of the men who visited us recently was driving back home, we made a suggestion to him that he interrupt his driving when it was safe to do so, simply to be aware that his hands were on the steering wheel. Become conscious of yourself driving the car when it's safe to do so, not when there's a lot of traffic. Instead of daydreaming about what had happened back at the meeting, or being wrongly emotional over seeing an accident off to the side, simply break all mechanical thought and simply be conscious of himself driving the car. You can drive consciously when you should. Some other times you should drive with your mind. That is proper too, because memory tells you that there's a signal. You should stop at the signal. So what you're going to do from now on is a very difficult thing to do, but you have to start. You're going to start interrupting, breaking mechanical thought, and all thought is mechanical. You'll find that it will fight you to the bitter end, because your I, your sense of identity, yourself, is connected with it. And that's the last thing any of us want to give up, who we are. If I give up who I have called myself, and who society joins in the conspiracy, starting with my parents, if I give it up, I am free this very second at 10:36 in the morning. I am totally free of everything in the past and of everything in the future. And when I see this, and when this meeting is over, I will talk to you in an entirely different way than I used to talk to you before. I'll be completely relaxed with you. You may not be with me. You may be very nervous with me. You may be nervous with someone else in the room, but you'll be free. And on one level, you'll be talking with someone and opening a book or whatever you're doing, putting on your coat or whatever. And at the same time, you will be a wide-awake human being. You will be watching your own mind operate. You understand? So that you can catch a phony I trying to creep in and make you miserable, which will always do unless you're watching it. like feeling compelled, take this away with you as well, like feeling compelled to put another person at ease so that you might feel at ease by them being at ease. And that's why most people do it. Do you know how cruel this world is? I'm going to get off a little bit. I'll tell you why the world is cruel. One expression of cruelty, which is completely unconscious, nobody knows it, heavens, is to make other people uncomfortable. Because if I can make you uncomfortable in any way at all, especially if I can catch you in a blunder, oh, I'll love it if I can catch you in a blunder. You know why, don't you? It reflects back on me, one, that I'm a perfect human being who never make blunders. Two, but more importantly than that, and this is a very subtle one, so watch it. If I make you feel miserable through hurting you, and it's very easy to hurt you, it's easy to hurt any human being, just give them the slightest frown of disapproval and they're gloomy for a week. That's how sensitive most people are, how lost they are, how afraid they are, how apart they are of living from themselves. We're here to live from ourselves. But when one human being is able to hurt another, this person doing the hurting gets a great sense of power. This sense of power becomes very important to them in establishing and maintaining this idea of who you are. I am apart from you, because if you were the hurtee, I am the hurter. Therefore, we are separate. But look, see, there is a such thing as divine justice. You can't break the law. If I hurt you, I hurt me right now. I'm disturbed by it. I'm disturbed fundamentally by being apart from myself. If I hurt you, I am not a single self-unified human being. I still think I possess a separate ego, which I don't. Which is why true morality, true goodness, true decency, and let me emphasize the word true, or the word authentic, genuine decency can only exist when you are not living from an idea of who you are. When you use thought properly for cooking your dinner, but not using thought to tell you who you are. Unless you are living above your conditioned self, your acquired sense of self, you or I have no conscience. Do you want to pay the price? Ask this. Do you want to pay the price? Or are you tired of paying the price? If you're tired, then what I just said will help you. And you can say, I don't want to go on in this way of getting up grouchy in the morning and resenting the fact that I have to go to work at 8 o'clock. How would you like to go to work at 8 o'clock without having any resentment because your neighbor has a lot of money and doesn't have to go to work at 8? How would you like to be so free? See, again, I get some smiles. How would you like to be so free that you never compare yourself with any other human being whom you think is more fortunate than you? All these things we're talking about will enable you to do this. How much time do we have on?
Another 10 minutes.
Another 10 minutes. Will you take a new look at the phrase self-responsibility and self-reliance? And regardless of what comes to you, from now on, you will respond on the proper level of thinking. This is thinking now. This is thought, and there's proper thought. You will say, I am not going to torture myself anymore by getting angry at what happened to me. You don't believe me at all, because you don't see how angry you have been in the last 10 days. Or do you? Say, I am not going to torture myself by being an angry human being anymore. Because when I was a boy and I saw how angry my father was, and my mother, and how angry nice people got all the time and lied about it, I thought that anger was necessary. I thought it was right. And because it became so hardened in my mind that to be hostile and angry was necessary in this world, I myself took on the negative mechanical habit of responding in anger to anything that displeased me. Now I've heard something at a talk I went to or in a book I read. I've heard it said that I am destroying myself. And you know, that makes a lot of sense because I sense that I am destroying myself. Therefore, could it be possible that my father and my mother and that very nice uncle whom I admired and I saw what problems he had beneath his jokes at the Thanksgiving Day party, is it just possible that I don't have to repeat this pattern, that I can break out of the whole thing? If you sense this much, hooray for you. Start to say, I'm going to be responsible for my own thinking, for my own responses, and not think what other people told me was right. You understand? I'm not going to simply follow what they said. You may, sitting in this room, you may be quite unconscious of how you are living from 30 years ago. And if you have problems of any kind at all, you are. If you have internal difficulties, I'm not talking about exterior ones. We're talking here strictly about the interior, because then the outside then becomes no problem at all. I'm no problem to myself if I'm not. You are not a problem to me. No circumstances are. Death is not a problem to me unless I'm a problem to myself. Death of any kind, of what I have called myself. So when something happens to me from now on, I'm going to say, I am going to first be responsible for what? For what? Listen. For my response to it. Because this is what I'm going to have. I'm going to have a reaction, am I not? And I'm going to look and see what this reaction is. Shut up. Having seen that my responses are self-destructive, and if they're negative they are, that they are hurting me, and this is the way I've lived 30, 40 years, that's very humiliating, isn't it? If you're not humiliated, you're not working. You have to be shocked by what you see in yourself. All right. First you're humiliated. Then you say, all right, as a next step, I understand that once I see that I've been an angry, hostile person, that I lie about practically everything, not necessarily about my age, but about more important things, that I tell lies all the time, I understand that my next step is not to condemn myself for it. You see that if you condemn, you're on the level of mechanical morality, and you're still on thought. When I confess to the preacher, to you, what a horrible sinner I am a pure egotist. Do you understand? Who's the center of attention? Big sinner me. And then, after that, I play another trick on myself and say, thank God I'm saved. I'm no longer a sinner. I don't want to say certain things, but you can follow along with me. You watch television. You've been in these things. I'm no longer a sinner, but now I'm a child of God. And oh, what a cruel, ruthless human being I am. And I never see it all my life. I never see how vicious I am toward fellow believers, how hateful I am toward you. See, what a trick I've played on myself. Having seen how awful I am, my egotism is the last thing that'll die. So it puts on another mask of being a saint, of being a good person. And so 50,000 or 1,000,000 of us good Christians now get together and declare war on the other Christians in the other country. And in the name of God and Christ, we kill each other and we make each other miserable and provide all sorts of heartaches. You understand? It is so difficult to go beyond this type of egotism where you simply shift your mask that most human beings do not make it. Don't expect anyone to change. You have to change, and then you'll have no questions or problems with whether they change or not. They're not going to. Don't expect them to. And don't talk to them about it. You get yourself straight, then you'll never know who to talk now. So, thought is out because consciousness, awareness, understanding is not on the level of thought, and therefore has no condemnation for what I see in myself. To think of how awful I was of what I did, and what I did may quite well have been an awful thing to do, and was to that other person, I'm no longer going to condemn myself, because by condemning, by being ashamed, I hang on to me. Then the me will take another mask. We have to give the whole thing up by understanding that thought cannot do it. Thinking about it cannot do a thing. Then I can go on to being above thought and simply understanding. Then, when I don't exist as a separate ego, then and then only do I have a conscience. Then I don't tell lies anymore. I don't have to tell lies. Why do I have to lie about anything anymore? Think of the relief that this will give you to no longer feel one thing and say another. Think of what a relief it is not to have to defend yourself against anything. This is what freedom is. To not be anybody so that there's nobody to defend. This is what is known as being born again. This is what is known as being free. This is what is known as being a sane human being. And this is what we're after. All right, Juan, that'll be enough. Anyone? Yes.
When there seem to be, if there are all the time, seem to be problems on the outside that you have a reaction to, and you are trying to get rid of all thoughts.
All right.
Where are you then? And get rid of all those thoughts.
You're in a state of understanding everything.
Yeah.
You want?
But does it come like that?
Pardon?
Always? When you do this.
I meet a challenge in the outer world, any kind, but something that would maybe ordinarily disturb me.
The reaction of
all right.
What you say.
All right. Why am I disturbed? Let's find that out first. Why am I disturbed when you...
But that's thought right there, then. Is this the right kind of thought, then?
No, it is not.
Oh.
Because you were responding mechanically instead of first seeing that it was a mechanical response. Look, don't you understand? When you see a mechanical response, really see it, you do drop it because there's no you to hang on to it. You have given up this false you, this false self. It's gone. So who can hang on to it?
But that's thought right there. Seeing that is thought, or is that the understanding you're talking about?
Say that again, please, in another way, so maybe I don't go off on the run.
I don't get the difference between everything that comes to you is a matter of thought, right?
No. I have an image based on thought of being a nice person, let's say. Okay? I'm a real nice man. You catch me in doing something and saying something, and you say, you are not a nice man. But I'm not working on myself, and I'm protecting all my phony images about myself. You say, I am not a nice man. All right. My first thought is, of course, an angry thought, a resentful thought, and then, of course, emotion comes into it. I'm in thought, right? Now I do all the other things that lead to violence. Maybe I get angry back at you, or I smile with, now I'm divided because I really don't feel that way at all, or I say I don't, anything at all. I'm on thought. I've lived this way all my life. I see I don't want to punish myself with this kind of a reaction anymore. I understand now why I was in thought, because this thought was protecting my image of being a nice man, which is also thought. Okay so far? Now, for a long time, I begin to work on the challenges I get from the outer world. And at first I fail miserably because I don't really get it yet, and I'm still too involved with what I call me. But at least I'm on the track of it. And I'm tired, so tired of being scared. Because if you're in thought, you're scared, period, of everything and everybody. I don't want it anymore. So, from now on, I begin to watch my reactions. And maybe it happens again. But I'm still in thought because I still have an eye, and I still get angry. But each time, I catch it quicker, faster, so that thought does not rush in the minute you expose me to protect me. And I begin to die to the ideas I have of about myself based on thought. So that finally, maybe, if you call me unkind because I did something unkind. Instead of responding to thought, I simply see, we have trouble with words, I admit it. I see that you were right. I'm not divided anymore because I now see that it was true that I was a hypocrite. I am not divided anymore. Now you know what happens? I am not a hypocrite anymore. I'll continue it. I'll fall many times. But by seeing that the whole thing was false, that this image I had was a false image, and I see it was false because I got disturbed, I give it up. I die to it. Then you will never call me a hypocrite anymore because I'm not. Because I'm not punishing myself anymore. Therefore, now, let's go one step further. Suppose, I'm putting it this way, but you understand. Suppose I have saved myself. Right? I'm no longer living as a mechanical machine, getting mad at every 5 seconds. Right? And I am free. I am one with the world instead of being divided from it by thought. I'm one with everything. I have no problem at all. None. I have no problem. None. Then suppose you accuse me of something which is untrue. I'm not going to get violent, and I'm not going to feel self-righteous either, by the way, if I see that you are neurotic and accuse me of something falsely, wrongly. Because in the first place, I know it isn't true. I know that I am not a violent human being anymore. See? I used to be. I'm not an angry person anymore. And I simply see that you have a problem. And you're saying because you're nervous and you need to strike back at me. Therefore, everything I meet, after I've got free of it, does not have a response on the level of thought. It did at first, but I began to see that it was a wrong response. Therefore, I meet it with a pure mind, a whole mind, instead of the part of the mind that always fights because it's trying to protect itself.
That's like agreeing with your adversary.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, something like that. Remember, I'll just throw this in, then someone else please go on, because I don't want to dominate this too much. I will make many, many mistakes, many blunders all along the way. Never mind those. We're going to do it all the time. We're going to make so many mistakes. But every time I take a mistake, simply seeing it as a fact, instead of lying about it, I am that much freer of it. And much, shall I use the word happier? I'm much happier. To be happy simply means to not be divided in your own mind anymore. That's all it means. That is what happiness is. To not be a self-divided human being. Then I don't want a thing from you, because that creates division too. Because if I want something from you and you don't give it to me, or you cease to give it, I'm afraid, and now I'm divided. You can live any way you want. And if you want to be in my life, fine. If you don't, fine. What's the problem? I don't see any problem. Anyone, please.
Going back to Ruth's question here about thought. Suppose I have an image of being generous, and I see that I'm envious.
Envious.
Right.
Okay.
So as soon as I see that, it's painful.
All right.
So a thought comes in and says, you shouldn't be like that. So it's still the same thing.
Same thing. Right. Did you understand that? This is one thought. This is two sick people in a hospital trying to cure each other. See? Both on the level of thought. Let's to answer that in one way. We could answer it. Remember we discussed the nature of thought itself, how it operates, which is briefly like this. A thought will come to your mind. All right? It came to your mind. The nature of thought is to flow, to go into the mind, pass across it, and go out again. And as long as this happens, we don't have a problem. We don't identify with the thought. For example, if we made a mistake, any kind of a mistake at work or something like that, anything, if we don't hang on to the thought and say, oh, what a stupid person I am, this is egotism. You're still existing. You're an egotistical person, if nothing else. So if we let the thought go, but understand that I should have put the bolt over here instead of there, then we become more accurate on the everyday level. You understand? We become very efficient on these things, extremely efficient as the world allows, but the world is inefficient, so you can't go too far in it. You have to be efficient yourself, not cross over them. So, if I let the thought go, it cannot harm me. It cannot clog, deform an I, a self. So I let it go, seeing what happens, but not hanging on to it with time. Now I'm free. I'm free the second I drop it. Let go. See? Die daily. Do you see this is what we're talking about? Let it go. That second. That means this second. 10 minutes after 11. Right now. Which does not mean you lose memory. All these things are stored up in your memory as practical information into which you can reach out anytime you want as you go out into the world and use it in a practical way. That is not negative. That is knowledge. That is great. Right knowledge will never form a false I, a false self. Yes, anyway.
How does the self form?
Pardon?
How does the self form?
Well, when you and I were born, and these people were born, it was formed through society telling us who we are, and also because we are faulty within ourselves and did not know that it was false, we began to accept it as being true. There is something wrong with us. Do you understand? There's something wrong up here. Start with that. That's all you need to know. But we didn't know that we were living in a phony world, because when I'm a big phony and protecting it, I don't see I'm a phony. I can suffer hell and still not see it, because I refuse to see it. Besides, when you were born into this phony world, and this lady was, and this gentleman was, we didn't know that there was any alternative to it at all. And most people will never know that there's an alternative to it. They will not know. But for some reason or other, most of us here, some of you may not. Some of you may not be back. This may not be for you. That's up to you. Some of us here have seen that we don't want to live this way, but at the same time, when this crisis came, we caught a glimpse that there was something else that could be done, something that was real. And this is what we're getting right now. We're all in the problem, but I know that there is a way out of it. So do some of you. We're getting out real fast. Oh, we're going fast.
Is it understanding instead of thought when you react the right way?
Oh, sure.
Let that all go.
Sure, sure. There's no, remember what I just said, there's no me to hang on to thought. Because me and thought are on the same level. I'm a nice person. I'm loyal. That's it. I'm loyal to my wife, say, and she goes out with another man. Why do I get angry? Because my me, my wonderful loyal me. Boy, you ought to get onto this for no reason other than you'll be free of human beings, which means the same as being free of yourself. Let people betray you all they want. What's that got to do with you? See, when you're not there, how can you be hurt? It's this insistence upon me that is the cause of all human problems. There is no other cause. But it is not, do you understand this? Maybe I better say this. It is not frightening to be without a me, to be without a self. It is frightening to have one. Right?
So emotional attachments are false too.
Well,
Something,
excuse me.
I can sense that there's something false in it.
All right, explore it for yourself. Why do you have an emotional attachment? What does it give you? See, find out what something gives you, and find out that you should give it up, as painful as it is, and be all alone. Go through the hell of giving up an emotional attachment. I don't mean you give up a person physically, because you could make a very serious mistake there. You work here and nowhere else. You get out of this prison, which is the only prison. Then if it's necessary to do something out there, you will know what to do, and it will not be a wrong move. An emotional attachment is what? Trying to feel secure. Who's trying to feel secure? The me, the I, the self. And how can it be secure when it doesn't exist? You're feeding a non-existent horse, and it'll take all your money and all your time and all your energy, and it won't even give you a single ride. It doesn't exist.
But you have all this feeling of affection inside of that.
Well, certainly you have real affection.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what real affection is? I'll tell you what, I'll put it in a different way. You have real affection when you don't give 2 cents whether another person is in your life or out of it. That is real love. Right? You think it through. If I need you in my life, which is, of course, what people call love, if I am jealous of you and all that, I'm mad. and I'm scared, and I have no affection for you at all. I will use you to protect my own phony images, and you'll use me, and we'll be partners in hatred against a hostile world. We'll call it love and marriage. You love someone when you don't have any thought about what they can be to you or do for you. And they can go out or they can come in. But one other thing. They cannot come in on the terms of their neurosis. Right? When you're free, you will not allow a sick person to intrude into your life. It may be physically, but it'll certainly be psychologically. Because you will see the tricks they're playing. Because you saw through the trick you played for 20 or 30 years and got stung by it. Then very gently, and maybe firmly if necessary, if they don't understand, you'll say, no sir, no ma'am, I'm sorry. There can't be the kind of a relationship you want. You'll say, just a minute please, you'll say, no, I'm not going to trade with you anymore because I saw the horrible results of that all my life. Yes. Did I misunderstand? Did you have a question?
Well, yeah, that's it.
No, that was it. Go ahead, please.
This is personal.
Yeah.
I'm at a very, very uncomfortable thing in my life right now. And it's like, the husband's gone a few months, I get a little lonely.
Yeah.
And I know what this is. I want somebody to tell me I'm nice and all this good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get asked out for dinner, this and that sort of thing. And then I feel, I know what I want. Then I think, well, I don't want to go because this would be satisfying the ego state.
Right.
Now, this could go on forever. I'm thinking, now how am I going to, and I've read about it, about love and what true relationships should be with people. And yet, I still get this, maybe it's hung over from the old age, this bad image of myself. I think, well, it's like going back in the old days and God forbid.
Yes.
So, how do I go forward and get rid of this feeling? Because, like you just answered my question, I've thought about it, and that's nothing.
All right. First of all, I'll divide it into two parts. First of all, have you pretty much, at least to some degree, understood everything we've talked about up till now? Mm-hmm. This will answer your question. You see, everything we've talked about, that will answer. But now, let's pick out of that the word loneliness. And I'll apply this to everything we've talked about. If you are lonely, what is involved in loneliness? Many things. When you're lonely, you're afraid, are you not? Why do you feel lonely? Because you're divided from yourself. You still think in this division that Tom or Mary can reduce this loneliness, or going out to dinner or whatever you do to escape your loneliness. You think it can do something for you. And the trouble is, it's a very clever escape, because you do get excited by going out to the dance or to the party or whatever you do, and you get an excitement, and this excitement fools you. And all it really does is cover up the loneliness, and when you come home, you're lonely again. Loneliness exists on the level of divided thought. You say, I am lonely, therefore if. And that if is the danger. If you didn't say, if you said, I am lonely, period, you would see it, you would understand it, you would understand its falsity, and you would not try to escape from it, because you see there is no escape from who. How can you escape from, can you run away from your own body? See, put it that way. I can't run away from this body, I am it. So you are loneliness itself, so there's nothing you can do but see the whole thing. When you see it, loneliness collapses of itself, because it was an illusory state to begin with. You apply everything you've heard this morning to what you mentioned. That is the answer. Yes?
Mr. Howard, loneliness did collapse for me, but I don't know that I approached it in your way. I finally saw it as a time to have a good look at myself. And if this was the only times that I could look at myself were what I used to call lonely times. So consequently, it seemed to evaporate, because I needed this time to take a good look at me. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So is that, I didn't call it an illusory state, actually. I guess, although in reality it was. I don't know.
It was.
I don't know what reasoning I used in my words.
Well, you brought another element in, which is fine, just fine. Loneliness is an illusory state. It means you're thinking. And that kind of thought is divided thought and therefore negative thought. What you're saying is that you, if I have this correctly, that you used your state of loneliness to study it?
Well, yes, I had to look at it, and then suddenly it dropped away because I found that these were the only times that I could be with me alone. You know what I mean?
Maybe
I-
it's what
I'm
some
not-
would call solitude.
It's a time that I could work on not thinking and this sort of thing.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you when you won't be lonely anymore. When there's no such thing as a difference between being all alone and being in a crowd of 50 people. When the thought of lonely is not in your mind, either at home alone or with the other people. And if you are lonely, it will be in your mind when you're with the other people. Way back, it's covered up for now. You have to go above the word lonely. You know, if you're thinking about whether you're happy or not, you are unhappy. When you're happy, you're not thinking about it at all. There's no need to think about it because you are above thought about happiness. But we have to start using thought properly. You understand? So a person, someone might say, well, I don't know whether I'm happy or not. You're miserable. Because you haven't understood that thought cannot be happy. It has its right process, but it can't give you happiness. The thought that when you get this person in your life that you'll be happy, that's thought, and it's illusion. But by all means, when you're in any negative state, stay right with it and watch what is happening to you. It'll collapse. It's the beauty of it. You'll see the whole thing collapse right in front of your eyes, which means it won't be on your mind anymore. Anything you're thinking about as a problem is still a problem to you, and you'll never solve it on that level. You name the problem. Alcoholism, loneliness, wondering whether you're going to make a good impression. As long as you're thinking about it, you're in trouble right now. When you cease to think about it, because you're no longer protecting a false eye, you're free of it. Then go to the party if you want, or stay home if you want. See, you can do what you want to do. Before, you were compelled to go or stay home. You were under compulsion of false thought. Now you're free. You can go or come. You can walk in and out. No problem. And this applies to your everyday affairs as well. You can have a very severe business reversal, and if you are a free human being, it will be as of nothing to you. Which does not mean you don't handle it intelligently on the everyday level. If your business needs something to increase it, why, do whatever you normally do that's honest and so on. But there's never any problem because there's no ego connected with, I must be a successful businessman.
In other words, you correct it, but you don't let it get to you.
You correct it on the everyday level if necessary, because we have many things to do on the everyday level. But it does not reflect back on an I, because there's no I there anymore. There's no one to get hurt. There's no one standing here, right? Is there anyone standing here? Nobody. Can you throw a rock at this nobody? You can throw a rock. Who's it's going to hit? It's not going to hit anybody. There's no one there. This is what happens. There's no one there. Which does not mean you cease to exist. You're still here. Very often people laugh when I say that, because this is what you've been thinking about way in the back of your mind. But I won't exist, because you're still thinking that this precious you that you've identified with must continue. It never was born, except an illusion. You were never born. That's why you don't die. He identified you. See the opposites here, life and death? You were never born as you think you were. You were conditioned. Society told you who you were, which was all phony, and which caused all the fights and the masquerades that you see. But we've seen through it. We're not going to live that way anymore. No. All right, anyone? We'll take a few more minutes. Is that all right? Take a few minutes.
That was our work project for last time, was to say one with your negative emotions or your negative thoughts, like loneliness, not to try to escape from it. And wasn't that what our work project was from last time? You are the problem. Not to try to escape from the problem, but to be one with it.
Yeah.
Stay with it.
Right. Who would volunteer to explain that a little bit? We've covered this morning. Why must I not think about trying to solve a particular problem? Why must I not try to solve it by thought? Who would volunteer very briefly to go into that? Anyone?
Can't solve anything by thought.
Because thought is the problem itself. It's all on the same level. Look. Again, our example of an invisible person, a non-existent person. How can you put a coat on this person in order to make him feel better? I'm lonely. I'm scared. If I get this object or this person, I will feel better. How can you put this on a non-self? There's no one there. So we're trying to do a ridiculous thing, to say an impossible thing. How can you add something to nothing? See? There's no one there. But we have to see it. To see it, we have to start giving up who I have called myself and who society calls me. Then when society calls you a false label, you will know that it's a label and it won't have any effect on you. But if you think the label is real, you know what you'll do, what people will do? They'll go to banquets, and there are 5,000 people in the room, and along the speaker's platform there will be 15 famous men, great men of the age, and they all get up, and Mr. A will get up and flatter Mr. B, and Mr. B will get up and flatter Mr. C, and on and on and on. He's such a great man, you know. They always say the same thing, and you hear it all the time. And after someone dies, they always say, the writers are never original. They always say, you know, this man was always a soft touch. When everyone wanted money, he was probably a tight-fisted scoundrel. But they always say, you know, you could always get $10 from him or something like that. They're living by labels, by self-flattery. When you flatter me, or if I flatter you, and if we're working, don't swallow it whole. Say, you're trying to keep me trapped. And you're flattering me so that I'll flatter you back. Sorry, see? So thought cannot solve it. When we see this, we cease to think about trying to join with other people who are deceiving themselves, because we're no longer deceiving ourselves. We don't join in the social self-deception as a whole. We have no part of it anymore. Look, some of you people are kind of young. You have to stop being gullible. You have to... You're so gullible. Oh, you're gullible. And it's your fault. All right. We fell into the trap. We're getting out of it. Let's take one more, then we'll stop, if there is one more. Or two more, maybe.
I'd like to know how a person achieves an identity if all the thoughts from the outside world are fleeting thoughts.
Are fleeting...
If they pass through. How does a person achieve an identity?
No, well, we're not trying to achieve an identity. We're trying to get rid of an identity. Now, all right. The lady is saying, if I'm not Mr. A, who am I? See? The very attempt to get rid... Yes, see. If I get rid of A, then I must be B. No. You're not B at all, and you're not C, D, F. Cease to ask who you are. Don't ask. Now, I know why this happens. I gave you an illustration of that. The sinner who becomes the saint, the ex-criminal who now gives sermons as a guest speaker in the church, that type of thing. He's just as big a sinner as he was before, but he doesn't know it. Cease to ask who I'll be, and instead ask, how can I get rid of who I am, or rather, who I call myself? Because these are all self-labels. We have to see that we're giving ourselves the label. Don't be afraid of being nobody. This is it. Don't be afraid of having no self, of not knowing who you are. It is only when you don't know who you are that you are free. And I'm not even going to fall into the trap of saying when you don't know who you are, then you will know who you are, because some of you will react wrong to that. But now that I've said it, maybe you won't. See? Yes.
I think her question was, how do you get this identity? Isn't that what you meant?
If you have an image of yourself as a nobody, then that's who you are.
You must not have an image of being nobody. Now you're thinking about that you're nobody, and so you think you're somebody. That's clear to you now, though, isn't it? Huh?
I knew.
If I think I am nobody, I am still thinking. Therefore, I think I am somebody. I've told you before, try to get a good example of this. This is why you should beware of a humble person. They're the most vain, egotistical people around. That's an image. I am humble. If I think I am humble, I think I exist. Look what a great, humble human being I am who can save humanity. I'm still very egotistical. I'm thinking about myself. How simple this will be to you. So simple. One final one, then we will indeed stop. If not, I will give you a project. Now let's see if you do this. The moment we stop here, until you walk out of this door, this is what your project consists of. You're not to get away from yourself. Most of you have been listening very carefully, and you've had a certain understanding here. But I want you, as soon as I stop talking and the meeting ends, until the moment you walk out of that door, to be wide-awake human beings. Which means, first of all, you must watch yourself. Watch yourself reach for your coat. Watch yourself talk to the person next to you. Watch your reaction when you see the look on his face. Watch to see if you're tense with this strange person you've met for the first time at this meeting. And when you go out of here, you're to continue this, but if you concentrate it, you'll do it better. You watch yourself and be one with yourself from this moment on until you walk out of this door.